As the war drums beat, China and Saudi Arabia are secretly making deals to possibly start trading in the yen, get rid of the dollar. Right now, the US dollar is the world reserve currency, the petrodollar. Today's video, I want to get into that. We're all talking about Ukraine and Russia, but behind the scenes, there's a lot of deal making going on. So let's get into it.
We are the chosen ones. We are the few. Our Father's favorite son. And we're coming after you. And we're coming after you.
Check these numbers for yourself. We have a problem with inflation. We can feel it, see it, and even taste it. It was not caused by Russia, folks. It is caused by the Federal Reserve. It's caused by spending too much money and printing even more. I say it's caused by the Federal Reserve. They don't spend the money, and yes, we have a debt now of over 30 plus trillion, and if interest rates would go up to, let's say, just 5 or 6%, we would not be able to afford anything but the interest on that debt. So the Federal Reserve has also printed and given the banks untold trillions of dollars. We know they gave 30 trillion to banks by 2010. That news has just been released due to a FOIA request. We have no idea what the Federal Reserve has done in the last 2+ years. Take this example. The Manhattan Institute says for every single point interest rates go up, just a point, that adds 30 trillion to the debt over the next 30 years. So, which is the same amount in that period we would spend on defense. Take that in. We are adding an entire U.S. military for every single point interest rates go up 1 point. Adding a new defense, another 30 trillion. So get ready for that. So the value of your dollar is going down. It's going down. This is worse than the days of Jimmy Carter, top economists are saying, and I would agree. Real inflation right now, folks, is clocking in at over 15%. Check out Shadow Stats is one of the websites I use for more information, and all the micro data that I'm looking at, we're well over 15 if you break it down. So one of the core staples of the past 40 years and an anchor propping up the dollar reserve status was a global financial system based on the petrodollar. This was a world in which oil producers would sell their products to the U.S. and the rest of the world for dollars, which they would then recycle the proceeds in dollar-denominated assets, and while investing in dollar-denominated markets, explicitly prop the USD as the world reserve currency. And in the process, backstop the standing of the U.S. as the world's undisputed financial superpower. So the economic sanctions that we have imposed on Russia, some economists and people are saying that have caused immense damage. Others would say not so much. They've set up back channels through China, China helping them out. And Putin, by the way, has got billions stored away, tens of billions. Trust me on that. So they're getting help, but a loss of the petrodollar would be absolutely devastating for the U.S. economy. Saudi Arabia, it considers, and there's been a lot of articles on this, accepting the yen for Chinese oil sales. A Saudi official said in a statement that he said the dynamics, specifically in the last 2 years under the new administration, have changed dramatically. The U.S., with the Saudis has changed. China is the world's biggest crude oil importer, and they are offering many lucrative incentives to the kingdom. Since making an agreement with the Nixon administration in 1974, the Saudis have traded oil exclusively for the U.S. dollars. Today, approximately 80% of all oil produced in the entire world is traded for dollars, and the petrodollar has become one of the foundational pillars of the current global financial system. we have a lot of stuff in place if the Saudis would play that game. But based on the way this administration is running things, they may do it. Most Americans don't realize this, but far more dollars are actually used outside of the United States than inside the United States, and having the reserve currency of the world is a massive advantage for us. So up to this point, there has been, a big demand for U.S. dollars all over the planet, and this has allowed us to enjoy a standard of living that is way above what some people think the United States deserves. But we do a lot for the world, good and some bad, but some people don't feel we should be the world reserve currency, and they want a new player to come in. So unfortunately, all of that could be about to change, folks. People are saying Joe Biden is surrounded by the worst foreign policy team in U.S. history, and that is really saying something. By some of the moves this administration is making, I have some worries as well. Thanks to this catastrophically bad foreign policy team, our relations with both Saudi Arabia and China have greatly deteriorated. It's happened in the last 2 years under this administration. And what is the result of this? This has resulted in them developing closer relations with one another. That's what has happened. In fact, it's not just me saying this. The Economist, the Wall Street Journal, is reporting that it looks like the Saudis could soon start pricing oil that it sells to China in Chinese currency. Now, we could devastate them, China, if we wanted to, and they would never do it. But Biden is just taking a weak approach to this, his administration. So the U.S. dollar may be on its way out as the global reserve currency. Saudi Arabia is actively engaging in negotiation with Chinese officials. Chinese officials, I think, bought a home next to the king, MBS. Chinese officials, they want to price oil sales in China in yen instead of the U.S. dollar. And that's reported by the Wall Street Journal. So, if the two countries decide to conduct business using Chinese yen instead of U.S. dollar, this could mean big time trouble for America's dominance as the global economic engine for the world. So, is it done by design? Is it done by design? Both Democrats and Republicans who have come in realize the importance of the dollar being the world reserve currency. This administration just seems to take a whatever approach to it. So this would be a tremendous blow to the U.S., and the Saudis know it. Trust me, they don't like us, but they got to do business with us. And we always kept them sort of in check. So perhaps Biden should not have called out Saudi Arabia. He called them out, so they're bad, and perhaps his foreign policy team should not have angered the Saudis multiple times over the past 12 months. You saw what they said. So meanwhile, the Chinese still understand the art of diplomacy, and they are reportedly offering everything you could possibly imagine for the Saudis to make this move. So the dynamics, folks, have changed dramatically in this new administration with regards to our foreign relations with other countries. The U.S. relationship with the Saudis has changed. China is the world's biggest crude importer, and they are offering many lucrative incentives to the kingdom. And that's from a Saudis official who works in the U.S. and has been in the talks. They saw what happened in Afghanistan. They see what's going on in Ukraine. China's emboldened to invade Taiwan. Is the U.S. going to do anything about it? So they're emboldened to take over with the yen. China has been offering everything. This is everything you could possibly manage to the kingdom. Everything, this official said. So in retrospect, we now know why, the reason why MBS wasn't taking Biden's phone calls. And other world leaders have not been taking Biden phone calls. The leader of the free world in the United States and other world leaders are not taking his phone calls. That's, concerning. Sullivan, is deeply disliked all over the globe, and it certainly isn't an accident that he was put on the list of U.S. officials that Russians sanctioned on Tuesday. This list is interesting, but, we sanctioned Russia, they sanctioned us. They put U.S. President Joe Biden on the list, Secretary of State Anthony Blinken, Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff Mark Milley, and National Security Advisor, as I said, Jacob Sullivan. They're not a fan of him. CIA Director William Burns, White House Press Secretary Jan Psaki, and National Security Advisor. They added everyone to the list. National Security Advisor, International Economics, United States Agency of International Development Administrator, Samantha Powers. So they even put President Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden, on the list. He's working out of Burisma, running a $1.5 million fund, acting as a portfolio manager. Is not a certified financial accountant. Never went to school for finance and doesn't speak Ukrainian, but he's running $1.5 billion. They put Hillary Clinton on the list. They're just ultimately, it's just a symbolic move by the Russians, tit for tat. Whatever. Those sanctions are not going to hurt anyone on the U.S. list, thank God. But however, Mr. Putin is making other moves right now, and he made a move recently that will definitely cause a bit of pain for the Western world. So what he did, Russian President Vladimir Putin signed a law that would allow Russian airlines to take control of hundreds of Western-built planes leased from international firms. So the Russian news agency TASS reported, and that's through the Washington Journal. So there's some credibility there. The jets will be added to the country's aircraft registry and be deployed on domestic routes. And that's according to the Wall Street Journal. And the news comes on the heels of the island of Bermuda revoking the airworthiness of certificates for over 700 leased aircraft in Russia, which went into effect Saturday night. So Western powers and the Russians both continue to escalate the economic war that has now begun. And this is very, very dangerous game right now. But in the long term, and this is on the back burner and they're not talking about it, and that's why I wanted to talk about it. In the long term, what the Chinese and Saudis are up to could have far graver implications for the United States. Big time. And currency, is the number one thing that the U.S. exports. It's the number one thing. It's kind of sad. And if the rest of the world decides it doesn't need our currency anymore, we will be in really big trouble. Everyone and everything would change. If you think the inflation is bad now, ladies and gentlemen, just wait until that happens when we start trading in yen. Previous administrations, and I said this earlier, previous administrations, Democrats and Republicans, understood the importance of the petrodollar, and they were often willing to go to great lengths to defend it and work together to defend it. We're not seeing that right now. We're just seeing two sides. Everyone's picked their side and dug in. Unfortunately now, Biden and his team they're acting like nitwits, is in charge, and everything that they touch right now seems to get ruined. I don't know these people, but that's just what I'm reading and I'm seeing, and it's out of control. And I just wanted to bring this to light because we're all, we don't hear about COVID anymore. Now it's all about Ukraine. Look at Ukraine. There's nothing in the news about COVID. COVID's done. It's gone. And it's all about Ukraine and war. But you got all these meetings and all these maneuvers going on behind the scenes and the petrodollar. And I think it's interesting what's going on with that. And these Saudis are in talks with China to destabilize the U.S. dollar and make some changes. So we got a lot going on right now. This is just one more thing in the mix of madness. And I want to shed some light on it, open the eyes to it. Have a great rest of your week. Take care.